and he specialized in constitutional
Right.
law. I think he did.
Absolutely.
So I don't know. Maybe he thought about that also. That's an interesting point to me. I did hear Judge Joe Brown, who I've had the pleasure of meeting and being in a program with once in Memphis. He did address that. I don't think the media picked up
Of course not.
on that. They kept trying to make this a black and white
Right.
issue. Yeah, I do think the police department in Cambridge, at least that policeman, not the department, I'm not going to indict them. I
Right.
think that policeman acted in haste,
Right.
and I don't think he thought this all the way through.
He absolutely did. And I mean, it's interesting to note, too, that Dr. Henry Louis Gates is a law professor.
Yes. Somebody needs to get to Brother Gates and tell him when the police confront you, the first thing you want to establish is, are you under arrest?
Right.
And if you're not, then you can leave that alone. And if you are, try to get to jail as quickly as possible so you can get out. A la Huey P. Newton. That was something I learned from him.
He must have forgot, brother. He forgot for just a moment.
Doesn't serve you to do that. I mean, because they have that kind of power. He needs a little street smarts.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
He absolutely does. Now, brother, there's something that I wanted to touch on because this article or this paper is so full of supreme wisdom and just vital information. On page 16, the editorial talks about distrust of government and fear of a black president. Really, really heavy editorial. In it, I'm going to read the first paragraph, then I want to read something out of the middle. It says, democracy in America has been linked to the demand for respect of the rights of the people, even when the people were defined only as white male landowners and wariness of government. Writer James Ellis, in a recent Los Angeles Times commentary, noted, from the very beginning of our national history, Americans have been arguing about the proper role of government. Put succinctly, the dispute is between those who regard government as them and those who see it as us. That's a heavy.
It's a powerful statement.
Very powerful statement. Now, in light of this black president, as a people, is this a government? Do we see it as a government that represents us, or is it still them?
Well, that's a matter of perception. I can only give you my personal perception is that, again, I am an American, and therefore I'm entitled to all the rights of a citizen of the United States of America. So I insist upon being a part of us. That's up to me.
Right.
Now, I can also, if I choose to, place myself at a point of isolation, but I'm not going to get much done if I do that. So I'm an American, and I was born with those rights because my parents were American citizens, and so I insist upon that right. The distrust of government and the fear of a black president, now when I think about that, the presidency and the country is governed by the Constitution, and you have parameters that you have to abide by, albeit the last president seemed to have suspended much of the Constitution.
Right.
And I mean, just for this gentleman, President Obama coming in, they have to deal with the backlash of what the Bush administration did and the rights and liberties that they infringed upon. Just getting through that is a major obstacle right now. But again, this is political theater. People's feelings are hurt. They're in shock. You know, I wouldn't have thought that this was going to happen.
Right.
So I can understand people having some resistance to this. You know, people want to move to the hills, out the country. You know what I'm saying? But if you compare the two principles, Barack Obama, George Bush, and we'll just say the scales balance on a preponderance of evidence of intelligence. This is Obama, this is Bush. It's about like that. I mean, that case closed.
Absolutely. Now, just going back just a little bit, just dealing with the whole Barack recanting the statement about how the police department or this policeman acted stupidly. At a conference that the nation held dealing with the new educational paradigm, Sister Minister Ava Muhammad made a statement, and she said that Barack had to recant, and you'll know about this because you're dealing with the Underground Railroad and the master-slave relationship. Mm-hmm. He had to recant because he broke an old slavery master code or rule saying that you don't criticize the master, mm-hmm. which basically that's what it seemed like Barack did, especially when he recanted. Mm-hmm. I mean, here's the President of the United States, okay, backing up from a statement after somebody from a local government or a local police department made a mistake. Mm-hmm. The President of the United States comments on it. There's backlash from the police department, from the state, from Cambridge, from wherever the event happened, mm-hmm. and he recants. Mm-hmm. Do you see any validity in her comparison to him breaking that old slave code?
Well, I don't know anything about no slaves. I understand master means teacher. Here's a man that sits in the seat of power of the most powerful position on the planet. I again think, and this is simply my opinion, mm-hmm. I think that this was strictly political on his part because you got elections that's coming up, and this is something that they would have used against it. I think it was a smart move. Mm-hmm. Now, this is what it did for me personally. The fact that he could admit that he made a mistake went a long ways with me. Mm-hmm. Whether he meant that or not, I don't think George Bush ever admitted a mistake in his whole 8 years of presidency. So, no, I don't think that's why he did it. But of course, I don't know.
Right.
You know, so I can't say with any validity on
right.
what drove him. But I don't see the comparison of that. Not when you have as much power as the president of the United States
right.
has. A Boston police officer. Mm-hmm. Somehow, I don't think that's much of a threat. I think it was, again, much more a political move.
And I think it was definitely more of a political move as well, because especially when he was trying to tackle, at this time, the healthcare thing was just coming into the picture. And of course, his handlers would say, this race thing is going to be a distraction.
And it was.
Absolutely.
It was. I mean, that proved true. I think he was trying to put out fires. I don't judge that in his heart that he really thought he was wrong in supporting his friend. Mm-hmm. I think he had to think of the larger effort that was on the table. Man, I couldn't imagine what it would be like to be the president of the United States and the pressures that comes with that appointment of that job. So I don't want to second guess the man, and I'm not in his head, so I don't know.
And I think, like I said, I do think his motives were definitely purely political. But I think also on the part of, and of course this is my opinion as well, on the part of that police officer and those Cambridge, that whole department, because mm-hmm. they basically bucked, you mm-hmm. know what I'm saying, at the idea that the president would call this man out. Mm-hmm. I thought that, in my mind, was really a picture of white supremacy on a serious level, mm-hmm. because I seen, like you said, Bush, when they asked him, had he ever made a mistake, he's like, man, I can't think of one. I mean, he just told him straight up, I can't think of one. Yeah. And his father before him was just as arrogant. And I mean, these are cats who would say the most ridiculous Absolutely. And crazy things and never back up.
Well, Brother Herman, I say this. If that's white supremacy, give me more of it. I love it. If that's supremacy, thank you.
Absolutely. So, yeah, that's interesting. Now, dealing with the healthcare thing, I want to stay on that for just a hot second. We got a Negro brother by the name of Clarence Page, who writes for the Chicago Tribune. He's seen him before. He got a little funny-looking afro, kind of look like Ernie on Sesame Street.
I've seen him, yes. I've seen him.
But he said, and let me say this, I think that Barack Obama trying to reform, not transform, but reform healthcare is really revolutionary.
Absolutely.
But he said